Former President Trump spoke at two events on Saturday, a Christian conference in Washington and then a rally in Philadelphia. And here are some of his more notable remarks.
The whole thing was they wanted the Roe v. Wade was federal, and they wanted it all back in the states where the people could vote and make their decisions. It's now up to the will of the people in each state. Some states will be more conservative, other states will be more liberal. It's happening now. You see the votes are all taking place, and it's the way every legal scholar and just about all the Democrats and all the Republicans and conservatives and liberals, they all wanted it that way, and we did something that was amazing. Christians go to church, but they don't vote that much. Do you know the power you have if you would vote? It wouldn't even be. So you got to get out and vote. Just this time, I don't care. In 4 years, you don't have to vote, okay? In 4 years, don't vote. I don't care. But we'll have it all straightened out. My stupid people, when I wanted to refute it, they said, sir, don't dignify it with a refutal. Refutal or a refutal? What the hell word would that be? Refutal? What they'll say, he didn't know, refutal or refutal, but they don't know either. We have to get out there. We have to vote. We have to make sure everything's honest. And you keep your eyes open. You know, you're the police in a way. You can police your vote. A lot of people don't know that. Just make sure that vote counts. We have to make sure it counts. I told Dana White of UFC, I said, here's what we're going to do. You know, these are tough cookies coming into our country, coming with prisons and mental institutions. I said, Dana, I have an idea for you to make a lot of money. You're going to go and start a new migrant fight league. Migrants, only migrants. And then at the end of the year, the champion migrant is going to fight your champion. And I hate to tell you, Dana, I think the migrant might win. That's how tough they are. We saved the world from those forts, and now they decide to take the names off. And wait till you see ultimately what happens with those names. They did, I call it a transition, like transitioning. They have a transition name before they name it. The Reverend Al Sharpton Fort. Fort Al Sharpton. Now you can just imagine. You can just imagine. But this is a transition. They've done a couple of transitions. These people they're sick.
Sick? They're sick. No, they don't like losers. They don't like losers, Donald. I know you like losers. You like losing. You've lost 7 years in a row. I don't know if you know, but because of you, your party lost in 2017. Your party lost in 2018. Your party lost in 2019. Your party lost in 2020. Your party lost in 2021. Your party lost in 2022. Your party lost in 2023. If the past is prologue, your party's going to lose in 2024. So, yeah, there are a lot of people in the South, Southerners like myself. We don't really like naming forts after losers. That's not transitioning. That's like we want to name forts after American patriots who win wars. Donald, maybe you should see the beginning of Patton, where George C. Scott stands in front of an American flag and says Americans don't want and won't abide losers. They want winners. And so, yeah, we don't want some loser who tried to overthrow the federal government so slavery could continue another 100 years or so. We like winners. I say that as a Southerner. Okay? A little worried about Alabama Crimson Tide. I mean, is DeBoer going to be as good as Saban? I don't know. But if he's not, they'll fire him. Because that's how we think in the South. That's how we think in America. So, yeah, you want to name forts after losers, after Confederate soldiers, Confederate generals that rebelled against the United States of America? That's you. Reverend Al, I'll take a Fort Sharpton. It sounds nice.
I like it.
It sounds nice about an America, about a military moving toward a more perfect union and not stuck in its slaveholding past like poor Donald there wants us to be stuck in the mid-1800s.
Well, I think that one of the things that comes to mind is, of course, you know, he's playing to a crowd that clearly is against some of the things that I've represented, civil rights and other things. But the fact of the matter is he's also revealing himself. Most military bases are named after people who served in the military. And the one thing that he and I have in common is neither one of us served in the military. So you would think after being president 4 years, he would know by now what military bases are for. But he also showing to say that we should not take military generals or military people off of naming our military bases, as you've just talked about, Joe. It shows how he embraces Confederates being preserved as something that taxpayers of all races are paying for. Let's remember when we had the marches of blacks and Jews together in Charlottesville for the removal of Robert E. Lee, the Confederate general statue, and people were killed. One lady was killed. It was Trump that said there were fine people on both sides. So he reminds us of his embrace of that. And to take it a step further, in the collage of quotes you showed or statements he made over the weekend, he now is openly saying that women's rights ought to be done by states' rights. The whole civil rights movement was to get away from states' rights and have the federal government protect our civil rights. Now he's saying women's rights should be dealt with state by state, which was exactly the template of segregation and something the civil rights movement and now the women's rights movement must fight against.
So Thursday night's debate looms as an undeniably important moment in this campaign. President Biden is preparing by being at Camp David with some of his most trusted advisors, going through rigorous debate prep and rehearsals. He'll be there until Thursday morning, debate day. We just saw, Caddy, what Donald Trump, how he's preparing. He's at these rallies, he's incoherent remarks, and as noted in one of those clips, even proposing a UFC-style fighting championship among migrants. And he said it at both that rally in Philadelphia as well as at a Christian conference. And at that conference as well, he got cheers, he got laughter. This is where his audience is. That's what he thinks works. But do we really think that kind of stuff's going to play Thursday night when he's actually trying to win over some undecided voters?
Yeah, and then, of course, his campaign comes back and says, actually, that was just a joke, of course, and the libs can't take a joke, and they think we're talking about some kind of, human cockfighting thing, and actually this is the proud martial arts that they're going to be involved in. It's a dog whistle, again, about migrants, and that's a large part of his campaign is the kind of nativism around migrants. But he's been telling us, it was interesting at one of the rallies over the weekend when he's kind of polling the crowd. Remember, this is his debate prep, but he's polling the crowd about how he should actually perform and saying, should I really go after him, attack him, or should I just be quiet and meek? And, of course, one gets cheers and one gets boos. There's one thing that I am hearing from the Trump campaign is that, and you talk to both campaigns, I'm sure you do too, John, and they both sound very confident about Thursday night. But one of the things that they have said is that they think actually paradoxically that this format helps Donald Trump because having his mic killed for that time, it was back in 2020. I still have kind of PTSD from that 2020 first debate, which was such a, I'm not even going to use the word, it wasn't a debate, it was a nightmare. And they think that the fact that he's going to be muted means that actually it'll help him not come across as being so bullying, so crazy seeming, so extreme. And so they're pretty confident that this is a format that works for them. Let's wait until we see Thursday night.
And Reverend Al, it is so fascinating, as Jonathan Muir brought up, Donald Trump was speaking to a group, I guess, Christian nationalists. They call themselves Christians. Maybe they are Christian nationalists, people who, are all about politics and not about faith, because Donald Trump talked about a fight club for migrants, a fight club for the very people Jesus talked about in Matthew 25, the poor, the hungry. I mean, you look at the story of the Good Samaritan, there's not an overlay there, really. With that. Well, I would never have heard this in any church growing up. You would have never heard this in any church growing up. And yet Donald Trump goes into this so-called Christian conference talking about a fight club for migrants, and they're laughing and they're cheering. About as far away from the story of the Good Samaritan, about as far away from what Jesus says in Matthew 25, I think it's 31 through 46, verses 31 to 46. Nothing's further apart. than what Jesus said and what Donald Trump's saying. And of course, that just doesn't matter to them.
No, you have the scripture right, Matthew, but the other thing that was so callous about it is he said that he called to tell the UFC they should make money using these migrants to fight each other, make the money, and then he wants to deport them. I mean, if that's not exploiting people that is seeking a better life in their weakest hour, this is his proposition. Let's use them. Let's fight each other. The winner can fight our champion, but these are tough guys, all for exploiting, making money. He said to her, you can make a lot of money off of this, like you can make money off these people. At the same time, he tells the Christian crowd, you Christians don't vote enough, which is absurd on its face, but is now tantamount to voting, is that you must vote for him to confirm your Christianity. It should have been insulting.
Again, if Joe Biden said this to any audience, ... you know how it goes.
Here's what Donald Trump says about your freedom. After 50 years of failure, with nobody coming even close, I was able to kill Roe v. Wade. 2 years ago, the Supreme Court justices that Trump handpicked helped overturn Roe v. Wade.
Never before has the court granted and then taken away a widely recognized constitutional right.
New laws banning abortion are taking effect.
Decades of progress shattered just because the last guy got 4 years in the White House. We know what will happen if he gets another 4. For MAGA Republicans, Roe is just the beginning. They're going to try to ban the right to choose nationwide. They're coming for IVF and birth control next. We're up against extremism. Send me back to the White House and I'll fight like hell to restore Roe v. Wade and protect American freedom.
That was an exclusive first look at the Biden campaign's new message on the 2-year anniversary of the fall of Roe. To mark this day, I sat down for an exclusive interview with Vice President Kamala Harris, who has been the administration's leading voice on this issue, as well as a young woman by the name of Hadley Duvall. Hadley, as you may recall, was the subject of a powerful campaign ad last year from Kentucky's Democratic Governor Andy Beshear, featuring her story as a sexual abuse survivor.
I was raped by my stepfather after years of sexual abuse. I was 12. Anyone who believes there should be no exceptions for rape and incest could never understand what it's like to stand in my shoes. This is to you, Daniel Cameron. To tell a 12-year-old girl she must have the baby of her stepfather who raped her is unthinkable. I'm speaking out because women and girls need to have options. Daniel Cameron would give us none.
So that ad is credited with playing a role in Governor Beshear winning re-election in one of the most conservative states in the country. Now, Hadley is speaking out on behalf of the Biden campaign in defense of abortion rights. And here is our discussion. This is your first national media interview. And given what's at stake today, can you tell people what you want them to take away from, to know about your personal and deeply painful story, and why it's so relevant to women today?
Women today, if they're walking in the shoes that I was in, which was pregnancy from rape, then, you know, they don't have any option in a lot of states, and they're at risk for having no options after the election, you know, and that's, you know, very terrifying. And still, I will forever be that little girl. And, you know, that's really who I do this for. And knowing that I was in that position, and the only thing that allowed me to hold on to hope were the words, "You have options." Those are the first things I heard after I looked at a positive pregnancy test at 12 years old.
Wow. You were abused by your stepfather.
Yes.
Correct? It took a while to tell your mom about this. Your abuser was her husband. I'm curious how you did it, and I'm thinking this question is for young girls out there who may be in a similar situation.
When I was younger, it took, you know, a lot of planning. I would sit and I would say, okay, the next time I will tell, or, you know, if this happens, I will tell, or, you know, whatever. I would always have a reason, you know, and wait for that push. And then it would come around and I would get scared. My mom is a recovering addict. So, you know, when I was young, she went away to inpatient rehab, and I knew what that looked like. And I was finally in a point of my life that I had, you know, prayed for. My mom was not using drugs anymore. She was home. She was sober. And when I threatened to tell, I was told, well, you know, you'll risk your mom's sobriety. So that really stuck with me. And, you know, it always made me just want to keep the peace, because it was, you know, my family, the family that I had been hoping for and praying for so long. But then I was realizing that I didn't have peace, and that seemed to be most important. So honestly, just, you know, going into high school and knowing that there were a lot of milestones that not only me, but my sibling was about to, you know, accomplish. And I just didn't feel like we had to live in a secret anymore. So I honestly texted my mom from school, and I said, don't let me back out of what I need to tell you tonight. She started asking me some questions and actually came and picked me up from school. And I told her, I couldn't even look at her, and I said, Mom, I don't know how to say this to you. I'm just going to blurt it out. And I did. I said, I've been being sexually abused for 10 years. And immediately she was like, okay, we got to figure something out. Like, you're going to go stay with a friend, financials, you know, just, my mom was in cosmetology school at the time and had no income.
And now you're speaking out, because a Trump win would mean what for little girls in the situation you were in?
It would mean the unimaginable. It would mean that they have no options, not even women and girls, but, you know, women with non-viable pregnancies, wanted pregnancies that are non-viable, that are killing these women. They will know that it will be no traveling to another state. It will be no options based on where you live. It will just be one rule for everybody, and that will be no abortions. And that is a very, very dangerous world for women, not only young girls, but all women.
Madam Vice President, you're here with Hadley, in part because she's amazing, and also because her story resonates with you deeply. You have been close to similar stories in your own life, may have even set the path of your career, prosecuting sexual violence cases. Can you tell us about that?
So, Mika, when I was in high school, I learned that my best friend was being molested by her stepfather. And when I learned about it, I said to her, you have to come live with us. I called my mother. My mother said, of course she has to come stay with us, and she did. And so at a young age, I decided I wanted to do the work that was about protecting women and children. And I became a prosecutor, and I specialized in particular, child sexual assault. And the fact that after the Dobbs decision came down, that laws have been proposed and passed, that, as Hadley has said, make no exceptions even for rape or incest. Think about what these extremists are saying to a survivor of a crime of violence to their body, a survivor of a crime that is a violation of their body, and to say to that survivor, and you have no right or authority to make a decision about what happens to your body next. That's immoral. That's immoral. And I say all of that to say that, Hadley, you are doing such important work to be a voice, because I'll also mention that the majority of these cases don't get reported. You know, and in some states they've passed a law that says, well, if a woman or a girl reports it to the police, then they might be eligible for an abortion. Well, a lot of survivors don't report it to the police because of fear of retribution that they fear will be even worse than what they are enduring.
And Hadley miscarried. If she had needed care for that today, depending on where you live, you may not get it. It's been 2 years now since Roe was overturned. And now we're dealing with the raw reality of that, which is women bleeding out in parking lots, on bathroom floors. I'm curious what your thoughts were when Roe was overturned, and now what we do with the cases before us, like Idaho. If the Supreme Court goes with the state, are women going to be able to get abortion care in ERs in Idaho?
Listen,
are there going to be any other options?
First of all, I say let's really be clear about how we got here. Because the former president hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And in state after state, we are seeing what I call Trump abortion bans, including states that with a 6-week abortion ban, which tells you that these legislators clearly don't know how a woman's body works, or they don't care, in that most women don't even know they're pregnant in 6 weeks. And to your point, Mika, you know, there are 2, I think, coexisting issues here that are extremely important. One is the notion that the highest court in our land just took a fundamental right that had been recognized from the people of America, from the women of America, to make decisions about their own body. The notion of it all, that in this year of our Lord, 2024, the highest court in the United States of America would take such a fundamental freedom from its people, and understanding that this is not just a matter that is for debate and discussion and intellectual conversation. The real harm that has occurred every day in America since that case was decided and these laws are being passed, to your point, we know the stories about women seeking care because they're going through a miscarriage and being turned away by an emergency room because the physicians there are afraid they're going to be put in jail. In a state like Texas, they provide prison for life for a healthcare provider doing their job. And I don't think that I think that when you look at this issue, most people agree you don't have to abandon your faith. You don't have to abandon your faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government should not be telling women what to do with their bodies. If they choose, they will consult with their priest, their pastor, their rabbi, their imam, but not the government telling women what to do.
What is at stake in this election?
So much. You know, if you have a woman in your life that means something to you, her life is at stake. It does not matter if she is 12, 9, 34, you know, it really does not matter. If there is a woman who is in that reproductive age, then, you know, her life is at stake during this election. And it does not matter if you've never voted Democrat in your life, you know, it's get off your high horse, because women, we don't get to choose, you know, a whole lot, and you at least can choose who you can vote for. And there is a lot of things that need to be worked on, and, you know, we can't get it all done, but at the very least, we could get out of women's business when it involves their health care. And I've always said, you know, I'm pro minding your own business. Live your religion, you know, live it loudly, but don't expect your religion to make the laws. And that's, you know, like, your religion should be lived through and through, whether that's the law or not. However you came up, however you want to live your religion, but it shouldn't be forced on anybody else. And, you know, your religion shouldn't determine everybody's outcome, because I don't believe that my God that I worship and that I've learned about all my life would have ever wished something like that upon me.
Now to more from my exclusive interview with Vice President Kamala Harris. I asked her about who she thinks Donald Trump will select as his running mate and what President Biden will set out to accomplish in this week's debate. Take a listen. In the next couple of weeks is going to be the choice, Donald Trump's choice for vice presidential running mate. Who do you think it's going to be? Because this is the person you'll face off against in a debate, I guess.
Oh, yes, definitely. I don't know who he's going to pick up. I try to spend not too much time thinking about how he thinks.
Yeah.
But listen, I think it's clear there's a litmus test, and he is going to pick someone who will be more loyal to him than to their country. I think we saw what happened in terms of January 6th, and he is certainly not going to pick another Mike Pence, who stands to defend and support the Constitution, and is more likely to bring in someone who's going to be a rubber stamp. And the bottom line is that you look at the reported shortlist, and it is clear that the top contenders on that shortlist either support a national abortion ban or have signed off on a Trump abortion ban in their state. So I think the contrast is going to be pretty clear, whoever he chooses.
The debate is in a couple of days. Some Democrats are feeling this could be make or break for Joe Biden. What should he do in the debate, do you think?
Joe Biden and this debate will make clear the contrast. You know, of the many issues in our country and our world that are complex and nuanced, November of 2024 is binary. And when you look at the difference, I would ask people to really imagine what the world will be like on January 20th, 2025. On the one hand, you have Joe Biden, who has spent his life and career fighting for the well-being of other people, including health care. On the other hand, you have the former president who spent full time when he was president trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which, if he is successful as president again, would mean over 100 million people would be stripped of health care coverage. You have, on the one hand, Joe Biden, who under his leadership, bipartisan support for the first meaningful gun safety legislation in 30 years. And on the other hand, the former president, who, when speaking of survivors of horrendous gun violence, says, get over it, and will proudly talk about how, to the NRA, about how he did nothing on the issue. And I could go on and on. I think that the debate is going to make clear the contrast between our president, the current president, who works on behalf of the American people, fights for the American people, and the former president, who pretty much spends full time fighting for himself.
So let's talk about that contrast. President Biden and you have both warned that democracy is at stake in this election.
Yeah.
That if Trump wins the second term, women's rights will continue to be decimated. That international alliances will be frayed, that's to say the least, that your work, rebuilding the middle class, will be destroyed, that rights for minorities will be rolled back. If the contrast is so obvious, what's going on? Why does it poll so closely? Why is the race so close?
These races are always close. It's the election of the President of the United States. And everyone in an election for President of the United States will critically examine all of the issues and make a decision. But at the end of the day, we're going to win. We're going to win.
You're confident?
It's not going to be easy, and we're going to win. And I will point to, just look at what happened in the midterms, for example. Many talked about the red wave. I would call it a red drip.
Yeah.
You look at where the American people were in so-called red states and so-called blue states. Every time this issue of abortion was on the ballot, the people voted for freedom. That's who the American people are, right? We have our differences, but the American people believe in the integrity of our country and our values, which include that we protect and fight for individual freedoms and liberties. And so I do believe that the contrast is clear, and in November it will be stark.
Donald Trump says he connects with black voters, now especially because of his felony conviction.
He got indicted a second time, and a third time, and a fourth time. And a lot of people said that that's why the black people like me, because they have been hurt so badly and discriminated against.
He also says that he's not a racist because he has a lot of black friends.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
Well, on the first point, as connected to the second point, it's insulting.
Yeah.
It's insulting for a number of reasons, including he has reduced a whole population of people down to a sum total of what is in his mind who they are. And he's wrong. And he's wrong.
Joining us now, the president and the CEO of Planned Parenthood Action Fund and Planned Parenthood Federation of America, Alexis McGill-Johnson. Also with us, co-founder and CEO of All In Together, the great Lauren Leader. Thank you both very much for being with me. Alexis, what is Planned Parenthood trying to do to get the word out about exactly what the vice president was talking about, the services that Planned Parenthood brings to the table, but also that abortion is health care. Abortion is equal to health care, to saving lives.
Look, I mean, clearly we know now Planned Parenthood Action Fund just concluded a recent analysis of the impact of the Dobbs decision today. And we know now that 43% of women are living in states with abortion bans. That is 28 million women are living in states, and more gender expansive folks, and more than half of black women. So when we talk about the fact that abortion is health care, abortion is reproductive health care, and we know now that abortion bans have made pregnancy more dangerous. They have put us at more risk for outcomes in our pregnancies for being criminalized. The idea that that people still yet don't understand, right, on the opposite side of the aisle, that these bans are harming people. They are harming patients, and they are putting at risk the majority of reproductive freedom across this country. And that's what we are, that's what we are demonstrating right now. What's at stake.
So, Lauren, I just wonder how important you think it is to use wording that is authentic to the problem at hand. Since Roe was overturned, there are women who can't get the health care that they need. Abortion is not a bad word. Abortion is a life-saving word. A DNC and the procedures that one uses when they are miscarrying, they are life-saving procedures. They are, and when you use words like reproductive freedom or freedom over my body, it somehow triggers those on the far right as if it's something that can't be said out loud. It certainly can be said out loud because it's about saving one's life. And whether you're on the far right or you're a moderate Republican, if you're a man or a woman, there's going to be someone you love who needs an abortion in order to live or to not be sterilized or to have a miscarriage in a less traumatizing way so they can have more children. How important is it to spell it out for what it is?
I think it's essential, and you heard the vice president doing that. She's been talking relentlessly about freedom and the freedom to access the basic life-saving care that millions of women need. And as you know, and as we've talked about many times on this show, in the states that have restricted or banned abortion, you've seen huge spikes in maternal mortality because doctors are fleeing those states because of the crisis of care that it is creating writ large for, a whole range of healthcare services. And that is already on top of a massive maternal health crisis that we were already facing in this country before the Dobbs decision. But I'm so excited to be on with my wonderful, dear, longtime friend, Alexis. And we talk about this all the time, Alexis, but I wanted you to talk a little bit for our viewers about what you think is possible in terms of restoring the protections of abortion rights if President Biden gets the second term. And obviously, we all believe that that's going to be essential for the future of women's health care. But talk about what you expect, the commitments that the administration has made and what you think they're going to be able to do, in addition to blocking, of course, the terrible consequences that a second Trump term would potentially have for women. What's the upside for the next term in terms of protecting women's health care?
Yeah, absolutely, Lauren. And it's so great to see you almost in real life. I mean, look, we know what a Donald Trump administration would bring us, right? We know that he bragged about the Dobbs decision. He bragged about putting the justices on who would overturn our reproductive freedoms. And essentially what he was saying is that he believed that states should decide. He believed that states should decide who is free and who is equal, right? And we now are living in that reality that, I talked about, the 43% of us who are living in those states who who no longer have free and equal rights. Now, the upside of a Biden administration is incredibly exciting, right? We have an administration that has been an incredible partner fighting for reproductive freedom, fighting to protect patients, fighting to protect the right to travel, fighting to protect, the right for providers to provide care, and suing states like Idaho for not enforcing laws like EMTALA. So, we know their opportunity here is not just to restore Roe, but to build Roe back better. We need a durable, national, expansive right. We need a federal right. And that is what a collective of reproductive rights and health and justice organizations under the banner of Abortion Access Now are coming together. Just today announced a $100 million strategy to ensure that this administration has the right legislation in front of them to ensure that we have reproductive freedom and that we are not back in this place as we are 2 years after Dobbs.
Yep. President of Planned Parenthood, Alexis McGill Johnson, thank you. And Lauren, we're going to be talking about this all week in the lead up to the debate. We need to have you back, co-founder and CEO of All In Together. Lauren Leader, thank you as well. Okay, joining the conversation now, we have senior national political correspondent for The Washington Post, Ashley Parker. Ashley, your latest reporting, you traveled to a town in western Wisconsin last month to discuss this fall's election with so-called double haters, voters who dislike both of this election's candidates. And you conducted more than 60 interviews and found, quote, sentiments ranging from resignation and dismay to disbelief and anger over an election in which both the Democratic and Republican parties have served up the same two deeply unpopular candidates. What more can you tell us?
So I went to Hudson, Wisconsin. You're right, very far western Wisconsin, basically a river town on the river that divides Wisconsin from Minnesota. And I chose Hudson because in 2020, which was an election where we knew that something was at stake at that point, right? The margin between Trump and Biden, who won there, was small. It was just 155 votes. It was smaller than the margin of people who took the time to show up to the polls and vote for someone else, sort of, in essence, a protest vote. And it's emblematic of the state, too, where that same thing happened, where Biden won, but the people who showed up and voted for someone other than Trump or Biden, chosen one of them, the election could have swung. So these are the voters who are going to, in many ways, decide the election. And it was fascinating to talk to them. A couple of things I learned. One was age was a concern for both men. That came up constantly, although the concerns were more acute for Biden. They'd sort of talk about both men as too old, but they really had concerns, fairly or unfairly, of Biden's ability to do the job, even those who plan to vote for him. And then it really broke down. It was fascinating. The people who didn't like Biden or had concerns, they were really beyond the age. It was policy. And they mainly mentioned to me the economy, how they personally feel that it hasn't gotten better, and the Israel-Gaza war. And for Trump, it really, and this may not surprise you, it really wasn't about policy at all. It was about personality. They actually, some of them thought he'd done a fine job as president, but they didn't like how boorish or crass he was, or the tweets, or sort of who he was as a person. So really different reasons they don't like these two guys, but at the end of the day, they don't like these two guys, and they're sort of desperately trying to figure out what they're going to do in November.
Ashley, from your just giving us that snapshot of what you got on both candidates, would you think it wise that the Biden people give more emphasis on how the economy was under Donald Trump? Because we do have 4 years to look at. He was president, and he did serve. I know unemployment went way up under his mismanagement of the COVID-19 crisis, and they're not emphasizing that enough. And do you think, in terms of Trump, if he becomes more reserved and measured in his public appearance, would that help his campaign, since that seems to be his personality and his kind of over-the-top type of behavior seems to be what you're saying voters are concerned about?
So I'll answer your second question first, because that's the easier one. And the answer is yes, absolutely. If Donald Trump became un-Trump-like, that would absolutely help him with these voters. The question is, that's sort of core to who he is. And we've seen he can sort of control himself, become, as you said, more reserved. For a day, for a couple days, for a week, he hasn't really been able to maintain that for, say, an election cycle or until November. But if they could wave a magic wand, his team would love that, and that would absolutely help him. The Biden calculation is a little trickier because the economy is incredibly difficult for them to message on, as you point out, right? There's a ton of indicators right now that the economy, by a lot of metrics, is doing quite well, but it has not trickled down to the way voters feel on interest rates, on grocery prices, even on gas.
All right, the Washington Post's Ashley Parker, thank you very much for your reporting this morning. Former advisor to George W. Bush, Republican Karl Rove, is saying Trump's current slump in the polls may not just be like a blip, but part of a longer trend. On Fox News on Saturday, Rove broke down why he thinks this is the case.
There's been a trend since the May 30th guilty verdict in the New York case. So Biden has had numbers that have been moving up a little bit under women and seniors. He's still underperforming among women. Trump is doing well among black, Hispanic, and young compared to previous Republican campaigns and his own. But you're right. Absolutely, the movement is among independents, and they have moved in recent polls roughly 9 points towards Biden. 21% of independents in a survey shortly after the conviction said that they would be less likely to vote for Donald Trump as a result of the conviction.
Yeah, I mean, you know, John Heilman, again, in close elections where Michigan, where Wisconsin, where Pennsylvania is going to be decided probably by under a point, that sort of fluctuation voting matters. The one thing Karl Rove did not bring up that Donald Trump will tell you is he has the Joan Rivers vote locked away, just like he has in the past. So that he's at least got that on his side, but independents have broken away. And again, we hear it every 4 years. Donald Trump's going to get 20% of the black vote, 25% of the black vote. It just doesn't happen.
Well, as I will, begin by singing my usual song here. Margin of error race going to be really close. Going to be a margin of error race all the way through to Election Day, and we're still in the margin of error. But in the same way that we talk about how, like, any individual poll doesn't matter very much, but trend lines matter. I sat down with Jen O'Malley-Dillon last week and talked about the numbers, and you look at the fact that Trump's basically this year, calendar year, Trump's peak lead in the polling averages was at its peak in January after the Hur report came out, about 4 points. Last week, again, within the way inside the margin of error, for the first time all year at the 538 polling average, Biden moved ahead by a trivial number, but it's a 4 point over the course. It's not just the last month, I would say. I mean, Karl Rove knows these numbers, but it's not just the last month. It's a 6 month, very gradual trend line that's heading in Joe Biden's direction. And Joe, to your point, closing a 4 point gap over 6 months in a race that's a margin of error race is meaningful. And I asked Jen O'Malley-Dillon about whether they're seeing those same numbers, not just on the national level, but in the battleground states, and whether the verdict seems to be playing a part in it. And her answer was yes, that they're in the battlegrounds they're paying attention to. They're seeing, again, on the margins, small, but meaningful, appreciable, measurable, inching towards Joe Biden in a consistent way across the trend lines, and that the verdict seems to have made a difference to that. Again, we're so far inside the margin of error that you couldn't be more inside it, but it's meaningful, I think, and I think it's what Karl is picking up on there in that clip, and I think that both sides know it. The reason that explains part of why the pressure on Trump is mounting around this debate as much as it is on Biden. Pressure's high on both of them, but I think the Trump campaign sees the movements in these numbers because they are not dumb about reading polls either.
Oh my gosh, you know that journey to believe you're actually worthy of something? Oprah, how have you defied the odds?
Her show is unlike any I've ever done.
A revelation. When you listen, it feels like a hug, but your brain and your spirit and your heart is like, wow.
Imagine overcoming self-doubt, learning to believe in yourself and trust yourself and know you are enough.
If you need me, No matter where you are, it's a Jamie Carlino Show. We brighter by the day.
So, the moment with the...
I have never talked about this before, but I'm going to talk about it with you.
I love this. This is my favorite segment of the day. This is a look at some of the revealing moments from the brand new podcast, The Jamie Kern-Lima Show. In 2008, Jamie, then a TV news anchor, founded It Cosmetics, my fave, from her living room, selling the company only 8 years later for over $1 billion. And that's not all. She has also written 2 New York Times best-selling books, and she's become one of the foremost voices on empowering women to pursue their dreams and believe in themselves. And Jamie joins us now. I am so excited to welcome you to Morning Joe. I love my It Cosmetics. I do my makeup myself. So like you, as a news anchor, TV person, I do my makeup myself. It was so hard to find the right balance for myself to do it. And I used I love it, the foundation with SPF. Anywho, I know you've done way more than it, but that itself was a remarkably successful venture that you started out in your living room. And everything you do, Jamie, is so know your value. You initially did not think you were worthy of your success. You needed to know your value. You wrote a book, Worthy, Knowing Your Value. And you emphasize how important it is to establish relationships about who you are, authenticity and vulnerability being the key to success. I love it. And now the podcast. Tell us about it.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me. By the way, I have a signed copy for you here in studio, Mika.
Stop.
So ready to go.
All right.
I'm grateful to be here. I'm fired. I'm passionate about this, fired up, and just, this is an issue really that affects all of us. And, why I'm launching the Jamie Kern-Lima Show is whether you're a man or a woman, we cannot out-succeed our level of self-worth. And a lot of us work really hard to build a lot of self-confidence in our life, but self-worth is different. Our self-worth becomes our ceiling. So yeah, I'm really excited to launch this show. Literally launching tonight at midnight. So I'm really honored to be here sharing it with you. But right now, and you would know this from your incredible work, Mika, that 75% of women deal with imposter syndrome as they're going after their goals and dreams. Right? 73% of men, though, also they feel inadequate and not enough. And this is why, we're having conversations on the Jamie Kern-Lima Show about, Oprah's the first guest, which I feel so blessed and grateful for. But we're having these deep conversations that I feel like people have never had before on how did you learn to actually believe you're worthy of your success? Because right now, for everyone listening to us, you might be, crushing it in your career or doing, happy in your relationship. But at the end of the day, we still will hit a ceiling as to our level of self-worth, because we don't become what we want in life. We actually become what we believe we're worthy of. So we're going deep on this show of how do you learn to truly believe you're worthy of, of building the business, of hitting a new level in your life, of a healthy, loving relationship, of owning your seat at the table or in your goals and dreams. So thank you so much for having me on. It's an honor.
I got to get you on a Know Your Value stage. You've got this down. I love it. What did Oprah share? Can you preview? Your podcast drops tonight, you say?
It does, Mika. So this was her first ever 3-hour sit down. We broke it into 2 parts.
Whoa.
Yeah, and I asked her, here's the thing. I think we're all in this together. Thank you for what you shared. By the way, I'd be honored to do any of that with you. And I asked her, why did you do this show at the end of the 3-hour interview? And she said to me, I felt it was divinely ordered. And she shares some things that literally had me in tears. We talk about everything from weight to worthiness to how do you actually step into the dream and the calling on your life. Because a lot of us are like, well, what's my purpose? And then once we feel we maybe get clear on our purpose, well, how do you believe you're worthy enough to step into it? So she shares life lessons I have never heard her share before, which I'm so excited and just honored and grateful to share this show with everybody, because it's really, I feel I feel in alignment with my assignment, Mika. I feel like we're all in this
I like
together.
that.
Just like building our self-worth and believing things are possible for our lives.
So many puns coming to mind. First of all, you've got it. Jamie, you have got it. And I think this is going to be amazing. But also, for me, at 57 years old, because of IT Cosmetics, I'm doing okay here. But we do have a much longer runway in our lives than we ever could have imagined. When you were I think you were working as a waitress at one point in your life, starting out. Did you ever, I don't know if you're in your 40s at this point, did you ever imagine your career being like this in your 40s, and your career after 50, and your career after 60? Did this ever, come to your thoughts at all, Jamie?
Well, I remember the days I was working as a Denny's waitress. And I had this feeling, and maybe some people listening can relate to this. I had this feeling and by the way, I loved my job as a waitress. And I also had these dreams inside of me. But at that point, my self-doubt was so loud. I didn't think I was qualified. I didn't think I had what it takes. I thought people like me who come from where I come from don't have these big dreams happen to them. And that's why I'm so passionate about this, because had I not learned to really put in the work, and I've been obsessed with this for years now, on how do you build self-worth? Because when you become what you believe you're worthy of, that's the one thing. You can go out, Mika, and get all the skills. You can get all the knowledge. You can go to the right school. You can do all that. But if deep down inside you don't believe you are worthy of your dreams, they will not happen. And so for me, it's been a journey of that, because I remember the days waitressing, I literally was probably this close to doubting myself out of my destiny. And I think all of us, we have this yearning, deep down inside, when we know that we're here to serve or to share our art with the world, or look at some of the amazing work you're doing, right? Getting the Forbes 50, 50 over 50, some of the work you're doing is just shifting the entire world, and you're going for it. And why I'm so passionate is right now I think about every person just watching you and me right now who knows they want to go for it, but doesn't quite believe they're worthy of it. And going for it might mean, taking dance lessons again. It might mean registering the business. It might mean telling the person you want to be more than just friends. It might mean getting on the dating app right now, tonight, in your 70s. It could be any of that. And so that's why I'm so passionate about this. And it's been a journey.
I always tell women, if you don't put yourself out there, you never know what could happen. And you're a perfect example of that. You're going to help so many women. I'm so glad to meet you. The first episode of the Jamie Kern-Lima Show, featuring an interview with Oprah Winfrey, drops tonight at midnight on YouTube and all major podcast platforms. Entrepreneur and host Jamie Kern-Lima, thank you so much. Let's stay in touch.
Yes, and I would love to have you on the show as well, if you would love to. So thank you so much. You're in.
Name the time. Yes.
I love it.
Jamie, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn. MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.